I race a 100-mile ultramarathon in my HOKA Bondi 9. I've also used them in training, and today we're reviewing the HOKA Bondi 9, an everyday run type of shoes that is perfect for walking and is very comfortable, the trademark being, of course, the very cushy feeling. So let's review the HOKA Bondi 9. Hi, Simon here. Welcome to my channel. On my channel, you can follow my journey towards racing 100-mile ultramarathon. Along the way, I'm also providing a lot of tips and inspiration to get you out there and have your own adventure. I'm doing a little bit of product review because I've used a lot of different things out there and I want you to get the best gear possible. Today we're reviewing the HOKA Bondi 9. This is not a trail running shoes, obviously, so don't use that on trail. But should you get them for your training run, should you get them for your racing, that's what we're going to talk about today. And let's talk about the shoe itself. What type of shoes is that and what should you get it for? So if we just talk a little bit about characteristic, I mean, it's pretty obvious. This is a big ass shoe, but it's also a road running shoe. So it's a big ass shoes, road running shoes. And really what you get that for is for comfort. This is not a performance shoes. This is not, a carbon plate that you're gonna bounce and go super fast and win the Boston Marathon. You get that for comfort, and that comes from something that is a little bit bulkier, a little bit bigger all across the board. So very thick and absorbing midsole, very cushy midsole. And that's always a trade-off when you look at shoes is, do you want something that feels very comfortable, that is absorbing the shock, but usually that comes with the fact that then you're not bouncing back as much, but it can help for longer distance. It can help potentially if you're having a little bit of pain, but it's also good sometimes to have something that is a little firmer. So it's a bit of a preference of how cushy you want it. And this is, dialing all the way up the cushiness, which means it's much less responsive. And it's not necessarily my type of shoes myself. I prefer something that is a little bit stiffer, but that's something that is very personal. So it's good to try different things. And if you're trying to go on the spectrum of cushy, this could be a great option. If we look at other characteristic of these shoes, and of course I try to not go too much into specs, you can go on their website, you're smart, you can do that, but just to mention the things that are pretty important, the fabric itself, the mesh is actually pretty thick. So the 100-mile that I did was a 100-mile with Nora, and it got a little hot, and actually this was not breathing enough for me. So my feet got a little bit soaked, and that was a little bit of a problem. But this shoes is not necessarily meant to run in the desert or anything like that. This is an everyday shoe that you can do easily, like 5, 10, 13 miles on them. In training, actually, I preferred them much more than when I actually race 100-mile, which we'll talk a little bit later. But what that means is I've worked with these shoes. I was at work with these shoes, and it's good to not have shoes that are maybe too breathable, and then people can smell my feet, my runner feet. So this was perfect for this kind of in between where I would use them at work, and then I would just put my shorts and I would go for a run, and then I would be home. So that was good, but maybe something that would be more breathable could be great for hotter weather. The other thing that they talk about on their website a little bit is I think they redesigned this. Or anyway, that's kind of a fancy schmancy kind of design on the collar here. It looks great and it feels actually pretty good. I didn't think that was necessarily needed for most shoes. This is not an issue, but it's a little bit more flexible at the top. So it felt that I could tie my shoes a little bit tighter without kind of cutting a little bit. So that was a good feeling. Same thing with the tongue. It's pretty thick, just like the fabric itself. So again, you have more kind of cushiness, so your feet feels great, but that means that they're a little bit heavier. I think they go at around 10.5 ounces, so not a lightweight shoes, but also not crazy, so it's kind of in between a little bit. Heel drop is 5 millimeter, which is actually pretty good, and the stack is pretty high. I don't know the exact number. I think this is, but it's getting on the if you're short, you can wear these. But I think this is the trend a little bit with HOKA. They tend to have very high stack. If we talk a little bit about the sole, it's a pretty normal road running shoe, so nothing fancy there. And I felt they were pretty stable, actually. I felt really confident that there's no way I'm going to roll my ankle. It's pretty large, and oops, here you can see it. It's pretty large, and it's pretty sturdy, despite being cushy, because sometimes that's something that I'm worried when it's super kind of cushy that like you would land on the side and this would just kind of melt away and then you would roll. That's actually not the case. They're pretty stable, they're pretty sturdy in that sense, despite having a lot of absorption. And last thing, if we talk about the fit itself, for me they were true to size, although it was a little tight on the side here, so I actually got a blister in my 100 miler because of that and because of my feet getting wet. But they feel pretty comfortable. When I use them in everyday run or training run or recovery run, it's actually, it feels perfect. It feels very comfortable. So I don't know if they're a little bit wider, let's say, than the Speedgoat. That's my impression, but I could be wrong about it. All right, and now let's talk about how it feels to run in them and what was my impression running 100 mile, but also a lot of training run and also a lot of recovery run. I don't know what's the exact mileage that I've put on them, but you can see that they're starting to be used up a little bit. Yeah, you can see here, but they have a lot more in them. My guess is I probably did the 150 mile in them, maybe a little bit more. I did do the 100 miler. And my use for these shoes, I don't think I would be racing again in these shoes. The course that we were using was a non-technical. It was basically running a lot on asphalt, but also on a packed dirt trail, which is kind of the in-between of, yeah, it's kind of a trail, but it's not really a trail. So these shoes were fine for that. It was non-technical. And so for a 100 miler, I mean, I felt that maybe the extra cushiness would mean that my feet would, sail through and it would be no problem. I didn't really like them for the 100 miler. Maybe it's just even too cushy for what I'm used to. Maybe that's the reason, and if I would use them more, I would feel more comfortable. But they didn't feel like the right shoe for an ultra marathon, or at least not the 100 mile ultra marathon. Where they really shine for me and where I really like them was more in my training run and recovery run, especially recovery run. So after a 100 miler, very often for me, I will have a lot of heel pain. And there's line of thought that you need to reinforce your feet and everything, and I think there's some truth to it that if it's too cushy, that will be a problem, that you chronically use very cushy shoes. But right after a race, when you are sore, where it is inflamed, that's where I feel that having the extra protection on your feet actually feels good and it helps you get back to running a little quicker, a little faster, not in terms of speed, but in terms of how many days of recovery it takes. And active recovery being so important for me to race 100 miler every 1, 2, or 3 weeks, that this makes a difference. It makes a difference if I can come back to running, just jogging, recovery run, a day faster or 2 days faster. So I really like them for that. I also really like them that they're just comfortable. So in a day-to-day life, walking around, this is great. You're not gonna buy your Alpha Fly and just walk around in the office unless you're trying to flex. But this feels like a good in-between for that. It just makes it a little simpler. I just had to bring that pair of shoes, and then I'm gonna work, and then after work or before work, if that's what you do, you can run with them, no problem. 5 miles, 10 miles, these were actually great for that. I wouldn't do speed work with these shoes. This comes back to, these are not performance shoes. You don't really have the bounciness or the responsiveness that you would want when you're aggressively running, at 5 or 6 minute mile for like short bursts of intervals. This is not a shoe for that. This is a shoe for slow mile, but it will feel comfortable. So what's my overall take on the HOKA Bondi 9? For 100 mile, honestly, I don't think they're the right shoes. I think they're a little bit too cushy for that. You want something, or I want something that is a little bit more responsive. But beyond that, when I think about them more as a recovery shoes, and it almost sounds like it's pejorative, but it's really not. You want to have your shoe, your fast shoe, your responsive shoe for your short burst of energy, your interval. Yeah, there's a shoe for that. But you also want something that is cozy, something that will protect your feet, something that will help you heal after a race, be able to do active recovery, be able to do these slow mile, long run. I think these shoes are great for that. I think they're very cozy for that. The only limitation for that is I would not use them. Let's say you live in Phoenix and the summer is coming. I'm really sorry for you guys. It's gonna suck for a few months, but I'm sorry, really, I am. Maybe not these shoes for this summer. Take something that is more breathable. But when it comes to going to work and when it comes that the weather is a little bit milder, I think they're pretty cozy. They're doing exactly what you expect of shoes that are designed for everyday run, slow pace, and walking around. Great shoes for that. If you appreciate this video, if you appreciate my gear review video, I know it's a little bit different than my typical video, please leave a thumbs up, comment below, share with your friends, and see you next time.